Hello and welcome to a College Football Eve episode of the Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast, episode 15, presented by Ascension Sports, home instead of Tallahassee, and the Dan Mowry Law Firm. My name is Pat Burnham, and I'm joined by my brother Shane. Shane, what's happening?
Happy Friday. Here we go. College football is here. How's it going?
Yeah, man, it's going good. We're a little more than 24 hours out as we tape this show on Friday morning from Kansas State, Iowa State. And if you did not see our show yesterday, you need to go back to the Burnham Brothers YouTube channel or our podcast, which is available on Spotify and Apple, as well as Amazon. We had ESPN and Big 12 college football analyst Jeff Woody on the show yesterday to break down Iowa State, Kansas State, and we got a little bit in depth on the Big 12, and that was a fun conversation, Shane.
Jeff Sharp did a great job. Got to have him back on. Excited to watch him. I guess it will be here in about another week when he launches game one.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have Jeff on throughout the weekend, throughout this college football season. So hopefully we'll have a lot more of his insight into college football and the Big 12 in particular. We were supposed to have Corey Bender on the from the On3 network. He covers the Florida Gators. Unfortunately, we're having to reschedule for the second time. He's had something come up. It will detain him until next week. He's moving into a new house and has gotten a little bit further behind schedule. So we've all been there before, but so we'll get Corey on next week. Still a lot to talk about, Shane. Breaking news out of the SEC yesterday. We thought we would fall in line with just about every other podcast in the United States and go through some conference championship game picks. We're not going to pick conference champions necessarily. We're going to look at the two teams in each P4 conference that we think will end up in the championship game. We're going to talk about a surprise team in each conference, one trending up, one trending down. We're going to call it burn them up, burn them down. And then obviously our coach's hot seat, basically, are the coaches that are most likely not to be back next year and maybe a coach on the rise. So it could be a number of reasons why that coach would not be back next year. So, Shane, are you ready for the football season to start?
First fall out of it. In my first fall out of coaching, I spent a lot of time watching game day, which I don't get much of a chance to do during my last 25 years. So I'm excited tonight, even for Lee Corso's Not So Fast, My Friend special to kind of kick things off. Here we go.
Yeah, and listen, do me one favor. Do not put your hand on your microphone again.
I know. I keep muting myself.
You mute yourself. Just in case you know, we've this is our 15th episode, and we have technical issues to start out each show, basically.
Sweet.
So this is our second attempt to tape Friday's show. Shane and I had some discussions about whether we should go live or taped, and I'm more of a live guy, but thankfully we have gone taped most of the time. Taped live. We don't edit very much out. So far we have not edited anything out of these shows, so you are getting our live reaction. There's nothing taken out, but got a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with what they said, what we heard, which if you followed me from my days with the Osceola, is something I used to do on my show Seminole Sidelines. I used to take what Mike Norvell and his coaches said at Florida State after any given game and kind of break those comments down. Obviously, we're not going to be as Florida State centric on this show as I have been over the course of the last 5 years. So we brought up some clips that we found interesting, Shane. And I have not, Shane, I don't think has seen hardly, if he's seen these, he's seen them on his own accord. I don't think we have not talked about these. So you're going to get, and some of them I have not listened to in whole myself. So you're going to get real reaction here.
They call these hot takes. Are these called hot takes? What are they called? When they instant reaction?
Oh, well, I call it what he said, what we heard.
No, I'm saying our response to what.
Yeah.
Is that a hot take?
It's only a hot take if it's over the top, right? I mean,
I'm learning.
You
You have to jump the shark to.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are going to be hot. some of these are going to be hot takes, like we get the surprise teams and all of that, and then some of them are going to be educated takes, right? I mean,
should our aim be hot takes just so we can get sound bites? Should we live in that world? Be really controversial, say things just to say them? No.
I think that'll happen naturally. I think there's going to be enough. You hit your thing again. You got to turn your mic back on. Please, hey, go put on a pair of gloves. Do something.
I think I'm good now.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
you went a whole 2 minutes without muting yourself.
I'm learning.
I think your daughters would wish that you could pick this up as your superpower.
I will stop touching my mic.
Yeah, I think your daughters would like you to pick this up as your super. I think you totally ignored my comment about your muting ability to be your superpower. All right, so we got a lot to talk about. We're going to start with Greg Sankey and Paul Feinbaum. And as we talked about earlier in the show, the SEC has decided to go to 9 conference games started in 2026. So let's listen to what Greg Sankey had to say to Paul Feinbaum about this.
Commissioner Greg Sankey. Commissioner, thank you very much for being here, and I think we're all pretty eager to hear how we got to this moment.
Well, we didn't talk about it last week when you and I were together. So as we think about the journey, that would be one step. I'll go back to this week in 2021. So late August 2021, it was our first meeting of the SEC athletics directors after the announcement of our growth to 16 with Oklahoma and Texas. From the start, we talked about moving towards a single division, the opportunity to see teams go through our towns more frequently so our fans could experience all 16 teams. You'll recall in the division format at 14, it took 12 years to cycle through. In fact, we had schools in the 12-year cycle because we disrupted that before the 12 years were up that didn't make trips one place or another. It took a while, a lot of factors involved. I've talked about, bowl eligibility, the CFP, and some of the work by the CFP so far this year is progress. It's not a destination, but the honoring of schedule strength that's been communicated is really important for the Southeastern Conference. Being leaders in college football, continuing to play games against non-conference opponents at a high level in addition to the 9 games. I think that's a representation of fulfilling that leadership responsibility. That's not something that's done every place. Not everyone agrees. I'm certain that our coaches are concerned about the competitive aspect. We've got to continue to improve the selection process for the postseason. Yet when you factor that in along with our media relationship with ESPN, what we experienced from viewership last year, Paul, when you go back to the COVID year where we played conference-only games and had the highest viewership consumption on the SEC network, because every one of those games were great games, a lot of lessons that also set us up for future decision-making and future opportunities. Those are but some of the factors that brought us to this conclusion.
All right, so we got a little there from Greg Sankey on going to 9 games and some of the reasons they did it. I think that some of those are probably, or they're all probably true. But how much do you think this was done because the Big Ten's at 9, and they're trying to get to an agreement on what the college football playoff model is going to look like down the road? And does this take us a step closer to the 4-4-2-2-1-1-3 model? That's a lot. I don't think that's the right number, but anyway, the 4-4, and you're muted again, I believe.
That's a lot, and Sankey had a lot to say. I like that they're going to 9 just because it gives you some type of uniformity across the Big Four, where all teams are playing 9. Then you throw in the caveat they have to play the 10th game against another, Power 4 conference. I like that. I'm assuming that still allows for an FCS or a Group of 5 game, which we've debated the merits of that. But I do like the travel that you get to as a player and a fan to go visit basically everybody in the conference over a pretty short window of time. As a visitor and as a home to host someone. I think that's cool as a fan and as a player. And I think on the whole, in the playoff, I think he's going to advocate for as many at-large bids as he can, because I think they feel like they can get more at-large in whatever 16, 24, 28, as we've heard the last couple of days.
Yep.
whatever model it comes out in, I think they feel like this strength of schedule allows them to them in the Big Ten to dominate.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with particularly the ACC. They're still at 8, right? I saw some pretty smart guys on social media talking about, well, ACC doesn't need to go to 9-game conference schedule. It waters down the conference. This person was not of the opinion that this conference was particularly strong and did not see the financial difference between bringing in a FCS team or a lower group or 5 team and a lower level ACC team. But I don't think it's going to be up to the ACC. I think that they're going to have to fall. I think they're going to have to fall in line with what the Big Ten and the SEC are doing to get automatic qualifiers. Maybe, maybe not. But do you see any scenario where all 4 of the P4s are not playing 9 conference games and an additional at least a required P4 for a 10th game that have 2 games to do anything they want with?
I think the SEC leads the football world, maybe the college sports world. If you go back to COVID, you and I talked about it back then. They made that decision. Everybody followed suit and was forced to. So whatever they've set forth, that they've set the map for everybody else to follow, and everybody will follow, or they won't exist.
Yeah.
And that's probably, again, that's another conversation about where the ACC ends up in 5-10 years from now. But I think they're going to be forced to do that, and with the ACC. And to be honest with you, you start looking, if you go try to find 2 out of conference games, right? If you're now the ACC, you got to go find the Big 12 probably at this point. So that even your ability to have strength of schedule outside of your conference starts getting diminished.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that, I'm not sure Notre Dame will ever join a conference. It seems like, college football would hold the upper hand in that one way or the other between the 2 networks and the Big Ten and the SEC, but they don't. But with the ACC, if it were to go to 9, would it count Notre Dame as a conference game, or the teams that play it right on that? I think they usually play 4 ACC games a year. Would they count that as a conference game for those particular schools? But yeah, I think that I think the ACC has got to go to 9. I'm not sure where the Big 12 is. I think they play 9 right now, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I think that all the P4s should play the same number of conference games. They should. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I do think they need to limit the FCS games. Listen, I was listening to a show the other day where they're talking about the difference in FBS teams' NIL investments being upwards of $30 million from a high-level P4 to a low-level G5, and yet we're still playing FCS games. Even though FCS teams are being poached, the best FCS players are being taken. I think hopefully this is a step in getting rid of those games. I think we're past that point in college football where between the money that the players are being paid, the coaches are being paid to bring in a guaranteed win. They don't do that in NFL. These guys want to be like the NFL. I think it's time for everybody to follow what the SEC did yesterday and go to 9-game conference game schedule. And you have to play, and Florida State's already doing this. They've already got Florida on their schedule. Clemson's already got South Carolina on their schedule, so forth and so on. There are some states or some schools that are already required to do that. But listen, 9 games. I think the most interesting thing, Shane, I think it's great for SEC fans because you're right that those trips for not only the fans but the players themselves are going to be pretty cool. To get a chance to play in every stadium once over the course of your career. As a fan, getting to go through the SEC in full over the course of 4 years, I think that'll be fun.
I agree. When I played at South Carolina, the league was much smaller. They had just come in the SEC, and I remember it allowed you to cycle through, not in a 4-year period, might have been 6 at the time, that you would get to visit every school in the league. And the 2 I never got to go to and play against in their stadium or have come to us were Alabama and Ole Miss. And to this day, that's the 2 stadiums in that league I've never been to. And so, yeah, I wish I could have had that opportunity.
Yeah, so I like it. I was surprised that it came out right before the season started because there had already been a lot of debate about it, and it seemed like it was going to carry forward. But I know Sankey mentioned in his comments there was deadlines involved in all this. So and I'm sure they've got contracts with games that need to be either canceled or guaranteed by a certain date. So I'm sure that's part of it. Now, I think the most interesting thing in all this, Shane, that the SEC is going to have to decide is obviously who are your three traditional opponents. And if you're just looking at brand, boy, Alabama's got a tough. If this is a prediction that somebody put up, but if you can see our screen, and if you're listening on our podcast, we got a graphic up of all the SEC teams and a proposed look at who their three traditional opponents would be each year, and it varies. Now, I don't see any that are particularly easy, Shay. But do you see any that you find and listen, it cycles out, right? These teams are not all going to be great some years, and some years they will.
Off the rip, to me, Tennessee. Off the rip, just they got Alabama, great. Obviously, October. That's a game you want to keep going. Kentucky and Vandy are their other two proposed permanent opponents. I'd love to see the all-time record in those games. So just quick glance. First time I've seen this graphic.
Yeah.
I think
Tennessee. This is a prediction, right?
Sure.
I mean, and it's probably an educated prediction, I would imagine. Yeah, I agree. Tennessee looks like they would have a very easy setup in that if those three teams were who they were, then
I'd say Auburn's the loser. Auburn, if you in this projection, it's got Bama, Florida, and Georgia. So to me, Tennessee is the clear winner in this guy's outlook, and Auburn's the clear loser.
Yeah, Arkansas's not far behind with LSU, Texas A&M, and Texas. And now I think Arkansas will end up with Missouri, right? I mean, that's already the SEC's already tried to make that a traditional rivalry. They end each year against each other. So I don't agree with that one. I think Arkansas will get Missouri. I don't think they'll get LSU, Texas A&M, and Texas. But yeah, that's going to be the fascinating question for the schedule makers in the SEC. How do you keep everybody? And you're not somebody's going to be disappointed, right? Alabama's they're going to see Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee on their schedule if this were to pop up every year. And then Ole Miss has got Mississippi State, Vandy, and LSU. There's people are going to argue that year in and year out, there's going to be a significant difference in those strength of those traditional opponents. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to sit down, I'm sure, later and go through it myself. But I thought that was kind of neat to see that people have already started working that up. So we'll see what happens there. But some of
it just means more.
It just does mean more.
It just means more.
They
do the best. They do the best job, by the way, just creating conversation, the spring meetings, SEC media days in the fall, everything they do. They do the Netflix special. They do the best job of marketing, and they have for years. Unbelievable job by Sankey and that crew.
Well, it's just like, I don't know if you've been watching the Jerry Jones special, where he said when he bought the Cowboys, he wanted to make it a 365-day a year experience. He wanted to make it and that's what he's done, right? I mean,
sure.
you can argue that he has made that organization underperform because he meddles in everything and all of that, but you cannot argue with the fact that the Cowboys are relevant more so than any other NFL franchise, and despite the fact that they have not even sniffed a conference championship game, let alone a Super Bowl, in 30 years. They have not, this is crazy, but yeah, I think the SEC has branded itself better, and I think it does it better.
Agreed.
Than everybody else. But yeah, I think they followed the SEC is kind of followed. They are the Dallas Cowboys of people hate them or love them. They are,
but they win. They win. The Cowboys don't. They win. The Cowboys don't. I love the Cowboys. We lived in Texas for a while. I don't love the Cowboys now. When we lived there, I did. Danny White and the crew. And for whatever reason, I had a hard edge about Jerry Jones because as a young 18, 16-year-old,
fired our man.
I had a chance to go down in FCA in high school. I was devout in FCA at the time, and they gave me a chance to go down to South Florida and get in a small crop plane. And I flew back from, I was Punta Gorda or Naples, but I was in a little crop plane with Coach Landry, myself, and the pilot. It was like three of us at the time. It was the most amazing experience. I got pictures. I got his fedora on my head. One of my all-time favorite memories. This is not a pro football show, but yeah, I don't like Jerry Jones.
Yeah, well, either do I, but I'm just saying SEC is the college football version of Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's constant news. It's constant something. They've got all that reality shows on every program. They've got the cooking show. That they do with on the SEC. I mean, they appeal to everybody. So it's interesting. All right, so let's take a look at a couple other things. This will kind of blend in nicely with scheduling. Trey Lamb, the head coach at Tulsa, had some interesting things to say about practice and some of the modifications he would like to see because college teams do not have preseason games like the NFL.
I wish in college football we had one scrimmage. I really do. I wish we could just go scrimmage somebody, whether it's a joint practice or something, to where you can get used to having fans, having officials, playing against somebody else, having your sideline operating properly. And I wish coaches could come to an agreement of, hey, we'll play our ones in the first quarter, our twos in the second quarter, our threes in the second half. It'd be great to get that in college football. I'm more of a fan of doing that in August than I would be, we talked about it as head coaches doing it in spring practice. I don't even know who my team is in spring practice, but I'd love to get one of those in August. So we're going to treat this week like a scrimmage. I hope so. I mean, the NFL does it. I mean, the biggest thing is college coaches got to drop their egos. Like college coaches always want to outwork each other. My team's tougher than yours. All that's great. But the NFL seems to figure it out, and their players are being paid. Their coaches are being paid. Our players are being paid. Our coaches are being paid. I understand why we can't go practice with Missouri State for 2 days. They're not on our schedule. They're 4 hours away. We can meet somewhere, practice for 2 days, and do a scrimmage. I would love to do that during training camp. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm tired of our guys banging on each other. I want to see somebody else.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with him, man. Listen, to me, this is where the FCA has its place in major college football. Figure out a way during camp, during August, where you can get all 132 P4 teams a game, a scrimmage against the FCS team. You can sell tickets to it. Don't count it on the roster. Come up with the agreement where you're playing your ones for the first quarter, like he said. That way, you're limiting the chance of somebody getting hurt. It's not as competitive disadvantage to the FCS team, and it doesn't get anybody if it's a scrimmage and we were to see a FCS team beat an FBS team in this situation because of the modified format. It's not going to put any pressure on the head coach because I know there would be some teams that would be resistant for that particular reason. But I think he's right. I think it needs to be modified.
I agree 1,000% with you and Trey. The only sport in all of NCAA that I'm aware of that does not allow their players and coaches to go participate in a preseason game is college football. If you look across all the other sports within that building, on that campus, they can do it. So the fact that football can't, and again, you're trying to raise money now more than ever for NIL, all those reasons. And I'm like you throw aside any concern a coach has about being shown up, so to speak. It's situational and how you control it. It's not a game as people might, think of it when you hear the concept. It's going to be a situational scrimmage where it might be 7-on-7, 1-on-1 pass rush, just like you go to these NFL joint practices. So I think it needs to happen. I think it will happen eventually. What I love about hearing Trey talk about it, that's a coach's kid. Bobby Lamb, his dad, longtime head coach at Furman. When he talks that way, are these old school ideas, he's the son of that, but he sees the future too. So I think it's neat that he's not stuck and all that tradition that college football has had over the years.
Yeah, I wish more guys would speak up, and I think the coaches do have the power to get it done. I think that they are we hear all the time, they're the most powerful men on their individual campuses in most 99% of the cases. So I think that if you got enough of those guys together moving in that direction, Dion famously wanted to have Syracuse out to Boulder and have a little spring scrimmage. Yeah, I think that is the place for the FCS. Or even, I don't know how there's going to be some logistics you're going to have to work out, because not obviously there's going to be more FCS teams that don't play that do, that you don't have enough for every FCS team to get one of those against a P4 team, but you could certainly have enough P4s get a scrimmage game against the FCS team if that's what you want to do and continue to play those guys. But I think that gives, You can sell tickets to it. You can do fan appreciation day in the fall around it. You can monetize it, and you're not playing a full game, but you are more prepared for your season opener. In Florida State's case, if they were to bring in a Valdosta State and play them before Alabama, they're probably a little bit more polished before a big game like Alabama. But by the same token, these are big boys now. Everybody's getting paid. You don't get any more free rides by scheduling East Texas A&Ms and Mercers and all of that.
When I coached at Iowa State, I remember we were limited in the scope and what we could do with guys in the summer. And there were several times where you'd see kids from Drake would have come up and thrown 7-on-7 against our defensive guys and vice versa. And that was organized by kids who knew each other in the state and just wanted to compete against each other. I think kids thrive on that, and they get tired of hitting each other. And because you're not exposed in a full game situation, kids aren't getting tired. It's controlled. You're thudding. It's less prone to get guys injured, no matter who's playing against each other, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad people are talking about it. I'm glad we're starting to get some traction with coaches, and we want to thank Home Instead of Tallahassee for bringing you what we heard, what they said, and what we heard. If you have any in-home nursing care needs in the Tallahassee area, please reach out to Todd and Scott Harrell. They can be reached at homeinsteadtally.com. And we also want to thank Dan Mowry and the Mowry Law Firm. Dan is headquartered in St. Augustine, Florida, and specializes in car and truck accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death cases. And he can be reached at MowryLaw.com. Again, MowryLaw.com. So we want to thank those guys for their continued sponsorship of the Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast, along with Ascension Sports. All right, let's. Danny Cannell is always an interesting character on social media. He's not a big fan of the SEC, at least if you believe what he says on Twitter. But he had an interesting reaction to something that really doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't think it has a lot of bearing on how we see things, other than it's an ESPN related thing. But is the fix in?
Oh boy, we got something fishy going on in college football, and the season hasn't even started yet, and it involves ESPN's Football Power Index, the good old FPI, my least favorite metric in all of sports. Shout out to CFB Kings on X for finding this gem after doing a little bit of legwork, checking some numbers, finding some discrepancies. So they discovered that back in June, ESPN's FPI had Clemson ranked 11th and Miami ranked 9th. But all of a sudden, since then, there's been a little tweak quietly that no one's brought up. Miami dropped all the way down to number 17, while Clemson's right there at number 16, despite no major significant news coming out of either program. And coincidentally, look who moved up since June. South Carolina moved up 4 spots, and good old Florida Gators moved up 5 spots. Must be all the good news around DJ Lagway, right? If you've been paying attention, you know that's not the reason. But one thing it's talking season. Since media days, the SEC has been talking nonstop about strength of schedule, how their teams are so much tougher than everybody else's. Maybe that's what they plugged into the numbers, which aren't supposed to take in conversations or talking points. But somehow, miraculously, here we are. South Carolina, to start, despite losing a significant portion of their roster, jumps up 4 spots. You know who should be livid? Brett Bielema, who beat this South Carolina team in their bowl game, brings back one of the most returning production of any team in college football, including their quarterback, Luke Altmaier. And guess where they check in? All the way down at number 37. It's absolutely ridiculous. Every Big 12 and ACC fan should be absolutely terrified of what this means, because there's going to be a significant push this season to keep in those teams from the SEC, despite having potentially 3 losses, to put them into the playoff over 10-2 and yes, even 11-1 teams. They are terrified that they'll only get 3 teams in, and once again, for the 3rd year in a row, potentially not having a team compete for the national championship. Something to be aware of. I wonder if ESPN will address this, but my hunch tells me no.
All right, DK's a smart guy, Shane, and I know sometimes he's trying to get under the skin of certain fan bases. And he's really, really good at it. And I hardly sometimes I don't agree with what he does or says, and but he's got strong opinions and he's a smart guy. What are what are your thoughts on what Danny had to say about that particular ESPN poll?
Does a one-legged duck swim in a circle? Yes. Do ESPN and Fox are they going to play, and their TV dollars going to play a role in which programs we see in the college football playoff? Of course. Follow the money. You don't got to go too far back to find examples of this, but certainly he's dead on. I'd love to hear why there was a change in ranking. I can't imagine what it would have been.
Yeah, well, I think he's right. Listen, we talked about the fact that SEC brands itself better than most people and all the other conferences. Listen, I think the Big Ten's a great conference. I don't think of it the same way I do the SEC, top to bottom.
What's interesting to me is we played Auburn. I was at Citadel. We played Auburn in 2004. Really good team. Everybody knew they had a good team. Jason Campbell at quarterback, Cadillac, all the guys at tailback. Really good football team. They go undefeated, beat the brakes off us in early September for our money game, one of our money games. And they got left out. And, there was some discussion about it at the time, but it wasn't, and I don't know all the circumstances if it was NCAA related for infractions, but they got left out of what would have been the national championship conversation. It's hard to see that happening now, right? Give me a circumstance where a team goes undefeated in that league and are not part of the conversation. So just in that amount of time, Pat, I think and it's always been good football. It's always been, sold out stadiums, but the way they've branded themselves, just unbelievable job.
I've got an update for you on that situation. Auburn has now declared themselves national championship for that season. And Jason Campbell
Congratulations.
has announced himself as the Heisman Trophy winner. So Auburn is making up history as they go along. But yeah, listen, that was interesting thing this week, that Auburn going 9 natties and retiring Cam. They had a busy week up there. They're
It reeks. That reeks.
Yeah,
that reeks.
It reeks of desperation. We need some positive news coming out, because Hugh Freeze continues to give these very strange press conferences. He gave another one this week. I was going to pull it and didn't. It's the one where they're going to play 3 quarterbacks in the first game, which 3 quarterbacks, 3 play callers.
To me, the guy that won I think Auburn's taken a play out of the playbook of UCF, right? UCF goes and beats Auburn in the 2017 Peach Bowl. They come back, and Danny White, who in my opinion is the next commissioner of the SEC, Danny White puts on that scoreboard on that sideline press box at UCF, 2017 national champions, right?
Yep.
That took a life of its own down there in Orlando. So I think Auburn's about 8 years too late to this party.
Yeah, if you go back to the time before the college football playoff, and I think about going back into the 90s, late 80s, early 90s with Florida State, how many years that they did not win the national championship where they were definitively the best team at the end of the year, right? I think you can go back to 1989 and Peter Tom's team. They lost 2 to start the year, ran off 11 straight after that, and were the best team in college football at the end of the season, but they didn't win the national championship. A lot of people think the 92 team was as good as any team that Florida State's ever had. They were certainly as good at the end of the year as any team in the college football. So does that mean we need to go back and here in Tallahassee and put more national championship banners up because we're able to make the past look any way we want it to look? Yeah.
I don't understand it. I mean, I get it. I understand, I guess, why he'd want to do it. I don't understand carrying through with it, but
yeah, interesting. But yeah, all right. So we want to get some DK things. I want to get your thoughts on what DK had to say, and then I think this is something that listen, it's we're getting old. This reminds me of that, and nothing lasts forever, and this is going to be a interesting special tonight, and college football will not be the same without this guy.
Coach Corso is a maestro of the crowd. He can take them on a ride like not many people in the history of television can.
Celebrities absolutely love Coach Corso.
I love you.
That dog is ugly.
I think Coach is the ultimate mascot of college football.
Purple cow. Go Navy.
Lee Corso, life of the party.
This is my school.
Lee Corso had suffered a stroke He was determined to just not skip a beat.
Not so fast. Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not so fast, my friend.
Well, first of all, how fired up are you to watch that tonight? 9 o'clock
I told my
on ESPN.
Super fired up. I told my daughters this morning, my 2 teenage daughters are going to school this morning. I'm not sure how it came up. I said, I'm going to cry tonight. I said, what do you mean? I said, not so fast, my friend. Like, it's just, I had a chance to meet him only once, and I got a picture that I'll tweet out at some point to commemorate it. But, you meet people, and there's oftentimes they're not who you want them to be, especially TV people. I've met TV people over my career, and they put on this persona in front of the camera, and they get away from the camera, and it's a totally different dude. He's not that, man. So I had a chance to get to know him a little bit down there in Orlando, and when he was living there, and I coached there. Just one of a kind. He made you want to watch that show, right? I mean, that's iconic show, and he's one of the icons of that show.
Yeah, there's very few institutions, but he is an institution in college football. He, like you say, Chris Fowler is one of my favorite people on ESPN. Herb Street's obviously been there a long time, but guys have come and gone from that show. But those guys, Fowler, Herb Street, in my opinion, as good as they are at what they do, and they are good at it. Corso built that show. He made that show, and you could argue that maybe this should have come. His time to leave should have come before now. But listen, people rode his back. He carried that show for a long time. I've met him once in my life. I knew his daughter a little bit in college. She went to Florida State at the same time that I did. Acquaintances, not friends. But nothing but respect for that guy. It's nothing lasts forever, right? We're all getting older. It will be fun to watch it. But Florida State guy, obviously. I wish ESPN had. I understand why they're going to Ohio State, Texas. It is the biggest game that weekend in college football. But Fox big kickoff is going to be there. I think if I was ESPN, I would have made an exception. I would have brought the ESPN game day to Tallahassee. Alabama, Florida State still is a big brand name football game, and I think they made a mistake. But
if you ask them, if you
ask
asked them, Pat, where they were going, if you'd asked them, hey, in January of 2024, where are you guys going to open the season? And you said we got Texas, Ohio State, and we got Alabama, Florida State. You would have said, hey, man, let's be in Tallahassee for that for a lot of reasons. But I just think it's cool. You got a guy who probably one of the first coaches to kind of go and make a go of TV in my mind that I can remember. And he's not that, handsome, rugged. He just had a great personality and a great way of, talking football.
Yeah. And they say you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. I think he may be harder to replace on that show than some college football coaches are at their programs that were legitimately great. But it's going to be interesting. I'm glad. Can't wait to see that show. All right, so let's dive into some more football, Shane. We're going to talk a little bit about some preseason conference favorites. So we're going to cover three things. We're going to hit the ACC first, and I'll start. Who we think is going to be in the championship game in the ACC. If you believe all the experts, Clemson is head and shoulders above everybody else. You listen to these quarterback gurus, and there are some really good guys that evaluate quarterbacks, and I watch them. They seem to think that Cade Klubnik has turned the corner in his career last year and is going to be the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, especially the ACC. So I got Clemson going in. Listen, I don't think anybody's talking about them enough. And the other team that I'm going to have in the ACC championship game is Louisville. I think that they did a great job of getting the quarterback in Miller Moss. And then when you look at their schedule, Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green, first 3 games out of conference. But then their conference schedule, Pitt, you would think they would be favored in. Virginia, they will be favored in. Miami would be a 50-50. Boston College, they would be favored in. Virginia Tech, they'd be favored in. Cal, they'll be favored in. Clemson, a underdog. SMU 50-50. So out of their conference games, they've got one at least going into the preseason where they'll be an underdog, and two 50-50. The rest they'll be the favorite. So I'm going Clemson, Louisville in the ACC Conference Championship game.
All right. ACC Conference Championship game. I'm taking Clemson just because of all the things you said, plus the home field advantage that you have there and experience, quarterback, culture, all those things. Good on defense. And I'm taking Miami. You know, I'm high on Miami. I think the line of scrimmage wins games. I think Carson Beck's a much better player than people are talking about right now for whatever reason. So I'm taking those two in the championship game.
I don't think Carson's a bad player. I don't think he's as good as Cam Ward, and I think that there's going to be a drop off. That's all I said. But yeah, I didn't say their offensive line's terrible like some people.
No, they're not. They're the best in the ACC, in my opinion.
Yeah, so at least we didn't say that. But yeah, so all right, so interesting. We got two Clemsons and a Louisville and Miami split there. All right, so Shane, team on the rise in the ACC, or I guess a team that you think, at least at face value, people aren't putting much stock in, that you think will outperform those expectations?
I like what's going on in Atlanta. Georgia Tech, what they're doing, what they're building, the depth at the quarterback position that not many people have, and just the whole trajectory of that program over the last several years. I like what's happening in Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I had them as they were my team behind Louisville. Like, I have them finishing third in the ACC this year, even in front of Miami. So I'm not going to go with them as my surprise team. I kind of go back and forth on this. Like, I'm intrigued by the Drones kid at Virginia Tech. He's got great physical skills. Then there's also the Bill Belichick effect. So team that surprises, oh boy. It's between those. I'm going to go North Carolina. No pressure. Virginia Tech's coaches got pressure on him. North Carolina, we've been through the schedule with Jason Staples. Fairly easy at face value. So I'm going to go North Carolina, team on the rise.
I like it.
All right. So team on the downtrend, or coach on the hottest seat in the ACC. I can't go with Stanford because they're going to have a different head coach no matter what.
Okay.
I do think the situation at Cal is interesting with Ron Rivera and Justin Wilcox. But I'm going to stay in the state of Virginia, and I'm going to go with Virginia Tech's Brent Pry. I think that he is the guy most likely not to return, and a close second would be Tony Elliott at Virginia.
I think they're in the conversation. Both of them, Tony's had to overcome so much off the field in his time there. I want to give him a little more time, and he's such a great guy, and they've made a huge commitment in NIL in the last 12 months. I think Brent is well liked. Again, the quarterback, good player, gives him a chance. I'm going to take Cal just because Justin's been there for a long time, and there's, an hourglass on you as a coach, and he's been there a long time with just mild success. And then I'd say, the program here in Tallahassee, obviously for different reasons. I mean, I'm not saying the seat's hot, but the eyes and the attention on that season. But I think Cal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that situation is interesting. Now, I think it's a hard place to win. I think it'll be interesting to see how that Rivera Wilcox thing works out. But I just think that it's a show me season for the Hokies. I think they've got to show substantial improvement. He's in year 4, I believe, going into year 4. I believe both Virginia programs are.
I look back at Virginia Tech the last couple of years, and it might have been the Miami loss this past year where I thought they got hosed. There's been a game here or there where they're right on the precipice, I feel like, with Key, and he really is well liked, and I think that matters. Again, I think when people are behind you in your administration, they want him to do well. I think as players, they play with a personality. They've been right on the cusp, and I hope I like that program. I like the way he runs it. I hope they can get it over the top.
Yeah, I guess I think I like him. I think he's an interesting guy. I think seems like comes across as a good guy, sincere guy. But they start off with South Carolina, then they got to play the SEC superpower Vandy, who they actually lost to last year. So they got South Carolina and Vandy's hard to start. Then the ACC schedule: NC State, Wake, Georgia Tech, Cal, Louisville, Florida State, Miami, Virginia. I could see. Listen, he's on the hot seat. There's no doubt, but it's not. I'm still going to go with him because I already picked him. But I can see where he could get out of that. I think he could get out of that.
Yeah, obviously we're pulling for all these guys, but yeah, I like him a lot as a person, and the energy he puts off. I really hope it works out.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to the conference we talked about yesterday, and that's the Big 12. Wide open. It's a conference that's got some proven quarterbacks. You've got Avery Johnson at Kansas State, Sam Levitt at Arizona State, Rocco Beck at Iowa State, the Sawyer kid at Baylor. Utah's got the transfer, Devin Dampier. Colorado's got Caden Salter and the freshman, Julian Lewis. Kind of wide open. We talked about it yesterday with Jeff. Who you got in that championship game?
All right, I'm a little bit of a homer here, and hopefully has not too much to do with this. I'm taking Iowa State. I believe in Matt Campbell. They're comfortable in close games. There's a backbone to that program that wins late in the season. The quarterback, certainly with Rocco, I think they'll be better on defense just because they have to take a leap there. I like Iowa State, and then might surprise some people. I'm taking Utah. I think it's a great home field advantage. I like Kyle. Again, they played good defense even last year. I bet if you went back and looked at it, I don't know what the stats would say, but they played good defense last year from what I remember. And now you got a quarterback in there, and I think they're being slept on. And I'm taking Utah. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona State. I'm on the Kenny Dillingham train. I like that quarterback. I think the big thing is, can they replace that running back? I don't know if he's getting enough credit for what he meant to that program last year. I also think it's going to be interesting to see whether Kenny can live up to put up with the expectation. Can the program, are they at that mature? We didn't play the video, but there was a video earlier in the week. We may play Monday where he's talking about the history of Arizona State and being ranked in the top 15. It has not gone well for that program, but they've been to a couple Rose Bowls. So I'm going to go Arizona State, and I'm going to go with you. Listen, I think I've said it on Thursday's show. I think Kyle Whittingham is probably the best coach in that conference, and there's some awful good ones. Kansas is really good. I like Kansas State. Iowa State's got a great coach. So I think I'm going to go with Utah, Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. My team on the way up. That's a hard one. Kansas and Houston both have good coaches. West Virginia's got a guy that I'm not crazy about, but he wins. Houston is ranked preseason 11. I'm going to go Houston exceeds expectations under Willie Fritz and finishes in the top half of that conference.
That dude is a program builder. Everywhere he's been, done an unbelievable job. You can go all the way through his career. Tulane, Georgia Southern, just keep going back. Great pick. Baylor, nobody's talking about Baylor. I don't hear much about Baylor. I hear about Dave being on the hot seat. Baylor and Texas Tech would be the two teams I'd say that if they're going to surprise, I go. And Texas Tech might not be a surprise because everybody's talking about their NIL, but relative to what they've done over the history of their program, I'll take one of those two as my surprise team.
Yeah, if somebody's moving up, that means somebody's moving back, right? I mean, you can't.
That's
Not
right.
everybody can win 9-10 games. Listen, I said it yesterday. I think it's going to be a very interesting season in Boulder, Colorado. They won 9 or 10 games last year. Great season. This is the third year under Dion. He does not have his son there, Shiloh, Travis Hunter. They lost a really good linebacker in the portal. They don't return but one starting offensive lineman. So I'm going to say Colorado, even though they're only picked 10th in the league, so I don't guess it's – I think the public perception, maybe not the media's perception, is that Colorado, because of Dion's going to be a player in the Big 12 this year. I just think they're going to take a step back from where they were last year.
I'm interested to see what happens with Oklahoma State out there in Stillwater. Got just a ton of respect for all the success he's had. It just seems, for whatever reason, it seems like it's toxic. Just the contract renegotiation last year. If you went back even during the COVID and all the things that happened with his incident back then, it just seems like it's been circling for a while. I don't know why. He does a great job on offense. It's a tough place to go play, but it seems like things are heading the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that talk about coaching the move. That's a perfect segue into coaches that may not be back in the Big 12. And listen, Whittingham is famously already named. Morgan Scalley is the head coach in waiting. I think if they win, there's a chance he's not back for the right reasons, right? The good reasons he goes out on his own. I think NIL and portal might run Gundy out of the game, even if a bad season does it. So I think you could see both those programs. But the guy I think has got to show substantial improvement on the field is Cincinnati and Scott Satterfield. I think this is a critical year for him. I think he's got to show that program can finish in the top half of the league, and they're not predicted to do so. And their 2025 schedule opens up with Nebraska, so it's going to be a hard conference game right off the road in Kansas City, Missouri. Then they've got Kansas, Iowa State, UCF, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Utah, Arizona, BYU, and TCU. So I'm going to go with Scott Satterfield's got to get it done, or he could. He's 8-16. Now, the thing I think that he's got going for him, Shane, we talked about this in another show. Does the fact that schools want to put their money in NIL and not buyout packages get him a fourth year, even if they were to go 5-7?
That, I wonder if he gets any grace for the transition into the Big 12 and the hiccups that come with that. It'd be interesting too as we get to the Big 10. Does Luke come back home if that happens? Based on what happens at Wisconsin, I think Arizona year 2, just from what I hear through the grapevine, it doesn't sound good out in Tucson, even though it's a little quick to pull the plug.
And that guy won at San Jose, right? I mean, this guy was San Jose, correct?
Yeah, it sounds like they had I don't know what happened, if it was the transfers out when they lost their last coach, Ched, up to Washington, but it just seems like the bottom came out quick there last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's I've heard the same thing. I read the same thing not too long ago that they were not happy with him there and that there could be some change. All right, let's go to the Big 10. Conventional wisdom is Penn State and probably Ohio State, or Penn State and Oregon. Most everybody's got Penn State predicted to finish first in the conference. So he's finally going to win a big game, apparently. James, that's the knock on James Franklin, even though he wins each and every year. But who do you have, Big 10? Are you going chalk? With those top 3 teams, 2 of those 3 teams, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. Are you going to go where the second tier, which is Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, USC?
No, I'll use your term chalk. I'll take, I have a hard time with Penn State. Unbelievable place to play, or have a home field advantage, but they just, like you said, for whatever reason, they have not been able to get over the hump. Maybe everybody's just betting the averages that they'll get over the hump. I'm going to go the other way. And I think it's probably Oregon and Ohio State, even though that's probably the easy, lazy pick. That's who I'm taking.
All right, Oregon. I agree with you on Oregon. I think Dan Lanning's getting closer every year. They got more money than they know what to do with. They should have the players year after year. So I'm going to go with Oregon. Ohio State's got a new quarterback. Drew Allers turned out to be a really good player. I'm not sure about Michigan. I don't think Indiana, whatever. I don't think they'll repeat what they do last year. I think if there's a surprise, well, you know what? I'm gonna go with Oregon Penn State. Drew Aller. I'm gonna go with Oregon Penn State. James Franklin gets it done.
Is James Franklin going to suffer a similar fate to John Cooper? Right, John Cooper wins 9, 10, whatever it was every year back in the 11-game schedule. Don't know how many Big Tens he won, but felt like John at some point they made the move to go to Tressel. And that's kind of what it feels like for this year at Penn State. There's been such buildup about this is the year, and it's almost building up to just an unbelievable letdown if it doesn't happen.
Yep. I agree. That's that. He's got the quarterback to do it. They say they're loaded at running back. They've got a number of players on offense and defense on the preseason All Big Ten team. So we'll see what happens there. Surprise team in the conference. I'm gonna go Nebraska.
Okay.
They're picked middle of the road, 8 out of 18. The other one, Minnesota. I would say I would think those would be my 2 surprise teams if I had to pick 2. But I'd say it's going to be Nebraska or Minnesota. Well, Nebraska will make the big step under Matt Rule finally in year 3, and he's historically made a big step at the program. Temple, Baylor, and then of course I think PJ's been at Minnesota a long time. They are who they are, and it wouldn't surprise me if they late in the season we're talking about the Gophers still in the battle for the Big Ten.
Nobody's talking about Illinois. I don't understand. The quarterback's back at Illinois. They've got a proven head coach. Has won 3, I believe, Big Ten championships. Everybody's talking about South Carolina. I hear about South Carolina. Last time I looked up, he was getting after those Gamecocks in a bowl game. So I'm taking Illinois. I believe in Brett. I believe in what they're building up there, and he's got a formula that wins in November.
Yeah, they're preseason 6th, and I do think that Altmaier doesn't get the credit he deserves. I agree with that, and I think that's another brand recognition thing where they're just not getting the respect they deserve because they're not as big a brand as some of these other programs in that conference. So that would not surprise me either. And Brett's an easy guy to cheer for, right? He seems like one of us. Seems like the guy you'd want to have a beer with. And Luke Altmaier's had an interesting path. Committed to Florida State, decommitted, went to Ole Miss, got beat out by Jackson Dart, and transferred to Illinois. And had a quietly great season last year. So that's a good pick by you. I like that. Let's see. Team trending in the wrong direction in the
That's easy for me.
Big Ten. Who you got?
I'm taking UCLA. I happened to see something this morning where the quarterback, right, that transferred from Tennessee, a screen grab of a text he had sent out was put on the internet, and the language that he had been promised a starting job before he got there, no matter who was competing with him. And that's not the only reason, but I just think that's trending the wrong way. We'll see where it goes, but I don't think that's long.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting situation out there. That whole thing that took place.
I mean, if you go back, even Chip Kelly, I think Chip had mild success there. Have to go back and look at it. But I feel like Chip kind of had him, coming up a little bit, had some success. Certainly the offense, I think they had success with, but it's interesting. See where that one goes.
Yeah. The easy one going backwards would be Wisconsin, I think, for me. You've already mentioned Luke. Is that a great fit? They haven't won at the level they were with Paul Chryst, who still not sure why they got rid of him, but they did.
What's interesting to me is that what's stark about that program right now with Luke is Phil Longo, offensive coordinator. Phil is up tempo, 11 personnel, go fast, go fast, go fast. You go back over the last 25 years of the draft in the turn of the century, you can almost, I'd bet you money, Wisconsin and then Iowa would be 1 and 2, however you flip it, in O-line draft picks. So you got this ability to recruit, much like Matt Campbell has to his geography at Iowa State. You had this history of it at Wisconsin. Get big maulers, grind people down, win games in cold weather. That's what's so weird about that one. It's a 180 from everything they've had success with, and I think that adds to his problem.
Yeah, listen. Indiana was 11-2 last year. I'm going Indiana moving backwards. They'll start out 3-0, but after that it gets interesting. Illinois, Iowa, Oregon. They could lose all 3 of those games. Michigan State, 50-50, UCLA win, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue to close it out. I'm going Indiana takes a step back, and y'all can Google me later in December and tell me whether I was right or wrong. That is a hot take. That is a hot take. Yeah. So all right, let's go to the SEC. All right, so conference championship game. See, this is interesting to me because everybody's picking Texas and Georgia, but we always sit here and say the most important position in college football is the quarterback. Both those teams are starting new quarterbacks. As well regarded coming out of high school as they may be, they're starting new quarterback. LSU's sitting there in preseason number 3, supposed to have one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Alabama right behind them, unproven quarterback. Florida, Lagway will be in the second year and a half as a starter. South Carolina got Sellers. Ole Miss, new quarterback. A&M returning quarterback. Oklahoma, big name transfer. Those are your top 9 schools. Who you got in SEC?
It's going to be trendy, but I'm going to take Georgia and Texas. I am. I just, I think Sark and what those guys do offensively, they've always had pretty kids, talented kids there. That's not the issue, but his ability to scheme on offense, and I do think Arch is going to be the real deal. Then I think Georgia, again, just the talent they've accumulated. They're a little bit younger than they have been. The quarterback is a question mark, but that they've been so dominant up front at the line of scrimmage, over the last 3 or 4 drafts and seasons. So I'll take those 2.
Yeah, I'm not going chalk. I think LSU should be good year in and year out on the offensive and defensive lines. They're in the second year of this new defensive system. To be honest with you, my biggest question mark is their head coach. I mean, I know he's won a lot of ball games, but I sometimes I wonder if kids like to play. I mean, I really do wonder if kids like to play for him. He's so demonstrative in some of the things that he says, and but they got Nussmeier. He's the most experienced quarterback in the league, I believe, at least returning. I know Mateer at Oklahoma had a lot of experience at Washington State. I'm tempted to pick really surprising with South Carolina because I love the Norris Sellers. And could you imagine the LSU South Carolina SEC championship game?
I like the LSU pick. I do. I think that's my line of scrimmage, all those things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go LSU as one team, and then I'm gonna buy the hype. I've heard y'all talk about you and Dad talk about Sark and what a great play caller he is, and I do agree with the 3 games we saw of Eli Arch last year were really impressive. He's a great athlete. So I'm gonna go. I'll go LSU Texas in the SEC championship game.
Who's your surprise team? If you had to pick a surprise team,
I don't know that it would surprise me because I really do. I think he's got a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But I'm gonna go South Carolina as my surprise. The other one, I don't think it'd be counted as a surprise, but I can't say Alabama because they're so good everywhere. They're proven everywhere but quarterback. So I'll go South Carolina as my surprise.
All right. Can I take Oklahoma 6-6? They're on the hot seat.
They're preseason number 9.
I'm taking them as my surprise team. And can I ask again, much like we talked about a few minutes ago, no one's talking about Mizzou, and I don't understand that with the job he's done. And I get it, the graduation, but nobody seems to talk about Mizzou at all.
Yeah, they're in this magazine. They're preseason SEC 12. I think that's a little low. I don't understand how they're not ranked ahead of Auburn and Tennessee, and Texas A&M is another team that I think could surprise some people. But yeah, why are they not rated ahead of Ole Miss, who's got breaking in a new quarterback? I think Missouri could surprise some people, and again, I think I think that goes back to preconditioned brand. Their name is not as recognizable, and they don't have quite the illustrious history of a Auburn, who's got 17 national titles in the last 3 years. And Yeah, I think they could surprise people.
Sure.
That wouldn't shock me at all. Team on the way up. Ugh, man, this is hard. Team on the way. I mean, you look at the top 10 teams, Shane, and they're already up. I mean, you can't go anybody's pick. I mean, you're going all the way back to Tennessee. Is the top 10 SEC predicted order of finish in this magazine. I'm going to go Auburn. Relative to what they've done the first 2 years under Hugh Freeze. And he's also be my choice for a guy most likely not to be back. But they should be better than they were last year. If they're not, he won't be on the planes next. So I'll ride the fence on this one. They should be better. People expect them to be better. If they're not, he won't be there next year. But his seat's probably not as hot as Sam Pittman, which I don't really understand why Sam's always under the gun. But I guess Arkansas has got a lot of money and a lot of expectations. But I'll go Auburn. They should be on the way up, but if they're not, somebody's going to be on the way out.
So that's the hot seat job. That's the coach under the most pressure, in your opinion.
Yeah,
I can't disagree with you there. I really can't.
Yep. And so
I'm on the same page.
All right. So, all right. Well, I think we've been through all P4s. So we'll see. I'll have to go back and listen to the show and write down our pick because I forgot to write them down. All right. Well, listen, that is, I think we're going to wrap it up. We've been going for a little bit over an hour. I know on next week we're going to try to get Corey Bender from Florida on before they play their first game. Tentatively, we have scheduled to have former USF, Louisiana Tech, East Carolina, UConn, and current Birmingham Stallions head coach Skip Holtz on the show. So we hope that Skip's schedule stays open, and we'll have a conversation with him about his experience in the USFL, which is now the UFL, where he has won 2 championships, and talk a little bit about what his thoughts are on college football as it sits today, because Skip was about as a college a head coach as you could get. He was in it for the right reasons. Really like the way he handled some of the things when I worked for him with our players at South Florida, and I want to get his take on how much he would like being a head coach in the NIL portal era, because I wonder how he feels about that. So we're going to have Skip on. We'll do a Florida State preview next week as they get ready to take on Alabama, and we're going to try to have several more guests on during the course of the week. All right, so we want to thank Home Instead, Ascension Sports, and the Mowry Law Firm for sponsoring today's show, and we will see you on Monday on the Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast.